Order, order. Hello and welcome to Reporters Without Orders, a podcast where we talk about what made news, what didn't, and some things that absolutely shouldn't have. I'm your host Tanishka Sodhi, and joining me in the studio today is my colleague Shivnarayan Rajpurohit. Hi Shiv.
Hi.
And we also have Paojel Chaoba, the executive editor of Frontier Manipur, a leading news portal in Manipur. Paojel's team has been reporting extensively on the conflict in Manipur from the very start, and we'll be getting some valuable insights from him. Joining us online is Prajwal Bhat from the News Minute. Hi Prajwal, how are you doing?
Hi, doing
Thank
good.
you so much for joining us. Prajwal and Shiv have been reporting from Manipur over the past few weeks, and Paojel has, of course, been there from the very start. I remember Frontier Manipur was one of the first organizations that was reporting extensively on the conflict. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Pleasure, Anushka.
So Prajwal's story investigates the highly publicized war on drugs campaign by the Manipur government and finds that heroin has gotten cheaper and more popular. It also dwells into the history of how poppy became a lucrative alternative to farmers because of its quick planting to harvesting time span and how it is one of the factors at the heart of the conflict. Shiv's story, meanwhile, sheds light on an interesting trend about how over 2,000 government employees have been transferred to work from districts from where they feel safe with the numeric strength of their community. This is one of the lesser explored impacts of the conflict, and we'll be speaking about this in detail. Shiv, we'll start with your story. So the mass transfers are, of course, a consequence of the conflict, but what is one of the consequences of these, transfers? How is it affecting law and order and administration?
Before the conflict started, the strength of government staff was evenly spread. So most of the IAS officers you'll find in the Secretariat in Imphal, the valley area, which is dominated by Metis. After the conflict, there were a lot of tribal bureaucrats who were working from Imphal. So if you remember when the violence started, in the initial days, DGP, at the time, the then DGP, Dongal, his house was attacked. One MLA was attacked, Kuki MLA was attacked. So depending on the ethnicity, doesn't matter how high, what your position is in the society or in the government, everyone was attacked. So same thing happened with the bureaucrats or police officers or IPS officers. They did not feel safe. So they fled to the districts, the hilly areas. Talking about the Kuki IPS and IAS officers. They fled to hilly districts.
Before they were transferred?
Yeah. So they fled to these areas. Right. And then the government said that there would be no work, no pay.
Okay.
Then the Supreme Court came with some order. Then they said these bureaucrats or police officers, they can report from districts where they feel safe. So the impact of these mass transfers, these are not exactly transfers. The government is calling is service utilization order.
Okay.
So the transfer will happen if there are sanctioned posts.
Right.
So if I could give you an example of Churachandpur district. Churachandpur district is dominated by Kuki-Zo tribes. So there in the district collector's office or deputy commissioner's office, the sanction post is only of 30. There are only 30 sanction posts. But since so many Kuki and Zo bureaucrats have gone to this district, the number has gone up.
Okay.
So there can't be formal transfer. It's just service utilization order that the government has come up with.
So were these orders asked for formally, or was it because they were fleeing to districts that the government decided to make it a...
In its submission to the Supreme Court, Manipur government said that these orders were passed at the convenience of government employees or on their insistence. This is what the government has said.
Right.
Of course, you can't get any work done if these people are not at their original posting. So, of course, there is some e-office portal through which bureaucrats can work from home also. But at the same time, they're posting, they are working from area where they feel safe.
And how has this affected law and order and administration in general?
Administration in the sense, most of the tribal bureaucrats or tribal IPS officers or senior police officers, several of them have gone back to hill districts. So the staff strength in hill districts has increased. And in the valley district, there are 6 valley districts in Manipur. there the staff strength has gone down. So if I could give an example of again Churachandpur district, Churachandpur police had 500 personnel
Okay.
in their ranks. After violence, 600 more police personnel have come to Churachandpur district. All of them are from Kuki-Zo tribes. So the number has doubled. So the police officers there, they are saying that now it helps us in law and order situation. But I mean, the impact is reverse in the valley. There, in the police ranks in the valley, the number has gone down. So a lot of cases have been filed in the valley. A lot of cases related to conflict. So they will have problem in investigating the cases, in assigning cases to, because each policeman is handling several cases. So this is the impact of this uneven spread of police personnel and bureaucrats.
Okay. And these transfers, which I think are over 2,000 in number, these have been over the last 3 months, or was there a particular month where all of the transfer happened?
This is not the updated figure. This is, the story is based on the affidavit the Manipur government filed in Supreme Court early August. So there are several orders, right? There are orders from the High Court also, like how High Court staff was transferred. So it involves various departments, various arms of the Manipur government. So dates vary. Like some orders were passed in June, some in July. So I think up to July 31st, it's safe to say up to July 31st.
Okay. And Paojel, so it has been almost 4 months, I think, since the conflict began. Has there been any major improvement, or is there a timeline as to you think till when the conflict will continue?
It has been surprising such a long time without the intervention of both the state and the center.
Yeah.
While at the same time, the government who should be responsible and the center who should be looking after the state in a certain way are doing nothing. As we have seen about recent fiasco in the parliament. And yesterday only our assembly session was shut down 11 minutes with more, comments on Chandrayaan rather than on the actual issue, which was supposed to be deliberated and resolutions could have been taken. So in order to answer that question, what I would say is that state government is not committed. They have, the politicians do not have that particular morality or the ethics or the spine that they are supposed when they took the oath of office. They're supposed to safeguard the interests of the state and its citizens. So now why do we prolong for 4 months when you can control the situation in less than 48 hours at the most? What I'm talking about here is the security provision that is being, the setup that is there in Manipur. Right. So there are more like 80,000 plus troops of all kinds, the Assam Rifles, the Army, the CRPF, the ITBF, the RAF, the BSF. So when so many troops with unlimited supply of infrastructure and the weapons and on military precision, Manipur has, you can reach anywhere in 6 hours.
Yeah.
So when the conflicts are happening in the eastern, the northern, southern, western, or wherever the place may be, it is no problem, no issue for the military or any other central forces or the state forces to control. So what I feel is that this violence is deliberately made to brew up, to keep the pot brewing.
But how would the government gain from the violence continuing?
Yeah, so that is the $1 million question. What I see here is like the connection of Manipur in a geopolitical scenario. When the Indian government has got this, which was formerly look is policy, the act is policy. We have the resources of, I think Prajwal and Shiv must all be aware of this, but that we have got this mineral reserves of gas, of petroleum, of uranium, chromite, or limestone, and this mining has already been, the orders have been given to private entities. Already, as per an ANI report, which I read, it is on record. So, on the other side, the act is policy for the Trans-Asian Highway to go through to all the other Asian countries. It has to pass through Manipur.
Yeah.
And the security provision there earlier is not adequate, was not adequate, or there was no commitment to safeguard the borders.
Right.
Now, as of recent, when some sort of a bifurcation of sorts happen of one community shifting to Chuchanpur and the other in Kangpokpi district and some people in Tengnopal. The whole crossover, I mean, the segregation. So why this is happening? Is there something more than what meets the eye?
Yeah.
Is it being done deliberately? Some political observers and some experts have already given their views that this is a premeditated move by some agencies in power for some means, some objectives. So coming back to your question, I would say that like there are some things which are happening for a bilateral trade, bilateral issues with Myanmar also, because for the safety of the economic progress, for the safety of the train, for the safety of the foreigners who are going to be there, as Manipur is going to be the main land port, the exit and the entry side of the international border. So you have to sanitize these particular areas, and that law and order should be there to prevail. So why so many troops right now?
Right. And how are the people of Manipur reacting to Biren Singh and the state government's efforts, or rather lack of efforts, to control the situation? Has there just been a major sense of disappointment, or do they still have hopes that the government will intervene and resolve matters?
I will not speak on behalf of the Manipuri public, but on my personal opinion, see, he does not have that particular commitment to act on by himself.
Right.
He is a Manipuri, he is a Meitei. He should have that integrity, that he should put his foot down a long time back and control the situation.
Yeah.
By controlling the situation, the Manipuri police are already adept in containing all sort of riots, because we have seen a lot of them. APSPA, the June 18 riots, you name it. So they are quite proficient in controlling the riots. So why couldn't they do so on the fateful day of May 3rd?
Right.
That could have been contained, because we have enough police personnel, the MR, the IRB, paramilitary forces already there, central forces already there. That could have been pumped into action. But why the delay? Now, what I would say is that our chief minister is lacking his political, firmness in bringing about a solution to this, because it could early have been done. But rather, I think that he's being taken for a ride in some ways, also with orders from the center, because we know that he's jumping the loops, that as like some in a circus of whatever the center is telling him to do, jump this loop, do this and that. So he is not interested in committing to the interest of the Manipuri public. How? Just by the yesterday's example of the assembly session. Because when the whole house is burning down, you are just engrossed with your TV and the remote and which channel you should watch, because the BJP brass told him to watch that particular video and speak on it. Hence the focus on Chandrayaan, but not on when your whole house is rather burning down.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I'll say.
Shiv and Prajwal, I'd like to ask you guys too, you all spent a couple of weeks in Manipur, interacted with locals across regions. Can you tell me how they are feeling right now, or even if it's the thoughts of a couple of people, do they still have hopes from the government? Are they disappointed? Are they angry? Or where do they think this is going to go?
See, I spent a little less than 3 weeks in Manipur this month, and what Shiv has spoken about at the start, this deepening divide. So when he says that bureaucrats are being transferred, it speaks of a divide that is almost unheard of in Indian history. I think this kind of partition or this kind of divide between two communities is a rare occurrence in our history. And you will feel that as soon as you begin reporting in Manipur, whether you are in Imphal, whether you're in Churachandpur, whether you're in any of the hill areas, the divide is so much more than the physical border that has come up in Bishnupur and in a few other areas which are manned by armed and paramilitary forces. You will see that in every sense, the two communities are talking inconsistent words or parallel words, where they want to be completely separate, at least for the time being. And one of the things that surprised me was the visceral hatred that I saw between the two communities for each other. I think that some of that is the reason why on the peripheries or in the boundaries between the hill and the valley areas, you're still seeing an armed conflict of the kind that India has probably not seen.
And Prajwal, I want to speak about your story now. It highlights how the average age of at which youngsters get addicted to drugs has drastically reduced from 20 to 21 years to 14 to 15 years now, which is a very alarming age. Can you elaborate on what are the possible reasons for this?
So earlier, Paojel mentioned the Trans-Asian Highway. So when I was reporting in Manipur, the one thing that I kept hearing is that since the 1980s, when roads started being built to connect Manipur with Myanmar, and the road network improved, the train network improved, along with the transfer of materials like timber and other essential materials, the transfer of illicit drugs has always been part of the Manipur story.
Right.
And it's been since the 80s that the white powder heroin has been thriving industry in Myanmar, and then Manipur has been the route by which it has entered Indian cities. So what we were looking at is a story that looked at this from the user's perspective. This story did not go into who is the cartel or who is the kingpins who are driving this trade. We know that that is a very difficult question to answer at this point. But the story that we reported from Manipur is also the story of every youngster in the region who is surrounded by an abundant availability of heroin. In fact, the street price of heroin I found has dropped drastically to as little as rupees 100 for a gram of it in the hill areas of Manipur. So it's an alarming trend that many people, both in Vimsala and the hill districts, could see it coming. The state seems to be fighting a war on drugs with an absence of data to understand just how many people are affected. So how will we know somewhere down the line that, whether you're winning the drugs or whether you need an improvement in this case? So it's a question that many people asked in Manipur. Okay, so the state government has been waging a war on drugs for the last 5 years. And it has publicized many things. The arrest of over 2,500 people from all communities. In fact, the Kuki community is not the community from where most of the arrests have happened. It's the Maitai Pangals, valley-based community that follows Islam, that has been arrested the most number of times by the police. And also it has publicized the removal of poppy fields. So this is in the hill district. This is in places where the Kuki population lives. And then Kuki groups believe that this is affecting or altering their economy. This is coming straight for the economy of the farmers who live in the hill areas. So there is, among the many factors that have led to this violence, this was also a topic of discussion, with many believing that this war on drugs is a screen to uproot the communities living in the hills.
Okay. And like you've mentioned in your story, the anti-drug initiatives are one of the main pole planks of the BJP when it rose to power in 2017. So what went so horribly wrong that, like your story points out towards the age decreasing and the drugs getting cheaper? Is it the lack of data, like you said, or is there another reason why this war on drugs has failed?
The state government is right now trying to get a picture of the number of drug users in Manipur for the first time. The last available data was a union government survey from 2019. Since every state government official that I spoke to said the number of drug users has increased, the number of rehab centers has increased. In fact, the state government opened its first rehab center in 2022. So there is admission that the number of people who are taking drugs has increased in this period, but there seems to be no data to show exactly how many people are injecting drug users in Manipur, but we know that the number is fairly high. What went wrong is something that people who are there, who are reporting there, can speak more about. But one thing that Paojel has also reported in the last 4 years, there are so many inconsistencies with the state government's war on drugs. One of the reports highlighting this is a report by the Frontier Manipur last year, which showed that Biren Singh met with an Australian businessman who was later arrested in a high-profile drug case in Mumbai. So, and in fact, that combined with the fact that Brinda Tanajam, ex-police officer and now opposing politician to Biren, talked about Biren Singh shielding the arrest of a drug lord who comes from the Kuki community, you begin to see that this war on drugs has not been entirely genuine. And at the same time, the state seems to be fighting a war on drugs without recognizing just how many people are affected by this and how they can displace the war on drugs. Is it by only looking at the number of people who planting poppy, but or is it also holistically looking at the number of people in rehabs and also who is profiting from the processed drug, which is where most of the money seems to be at, and not where not only in the stage of where coffee planters make money.
So that's all that we have for the video segment of the podcast. To catch the rest of the conversation with Paojel, Shiv and Prajwal, head on to wherever you get your podcasts from.
The subscription model is something that keeps Newslaundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.